Alrighty, so I figured we'd do something a little bit different today and actually just have a discussion. There has been a lot of talk online recently about Hildryn and Elite Archimedea. Really, this all stemmed from a post from Pablo, I believe it was, on Twitter. I don't have the exact post because I don't have Twitter, so I'm sorry about that. But at the same time, am I really sorry? Regardless, it was some data points from Elite Archimedea, and it showed Hildryn was really used a ton, like way above the other frames. I think she was around 35%. Maybe a little bit more, whereas the second most used frame was maybe around 5 to 7%. So there's definitely a large gap between Hildryn and other frames in Elite Archimedea, and people are worried about this data post because that might mean Hildryn nerfs, and people don't really want Hildryn nerfs, myself included. I don't even really play Hildryn that much, but I do play her sometimes, and she's fun. She's definitely a strong frame, but I don't think she's broken by any means. If you ask me what I think the strongest frame in the game would be, I'd probably say Dante. Overguard is seriously just so stupidly strong. In the past, it might have been Revenant with Mesmer Shield, but Overguard basically does the same thing, and Dante just does even more on top of that, especially with his augment now. I don't know why they had to give them that augment. Oh, it's going to be silly when Dante Prime comes out. But with this data being shown, a lot of people have been arguing that it's not Hildryn that needs nerfs or changes, it's rather Elite Archimedea, and I do have to agree with that. Now, I'm actually someone that enjoys Elite Archimedea. I do think that Elite Archimedea is probably for the 10% of the game or whatever, but just because it's for the 10% doesn't mean that the 10% don't also want changes. Again, I'm someone that enjoys it, but it definitely could be changed. And I don't find it difficult, but it could still get changes, because even if it's not difficult and I do enjoy it, that doesn't mean that there are no annoyances with it. And why is it not so annoying or difficult to me? Well, part of it is because I have plenty of frames that I actually enjoy and have built up. I have quite a few weapons built up as well. So what are the problems with Elite Archimedea? It really comes down to the randomness of the frames that you get, as well as the weapons, and also the modifiers. Now, some modifiers are fine. Dull blades, like, this is fine. It doesn't really impact anything, because especially if you're just running Naramon anyway, you're going to be good on combo chance. And also, you actually need a melee weapon to actually make use of this, or to have this have any sort of impact. Now, I have not done Elite Archimedea this week, but looking at my frame choices, I got Equinox. That's garbage. She's definitely runnable. I do actually have her pretty well built up. I just hardly ever use her because, yeah, I think you guys understand. Loki, which, lol. And then there's Octavia, who is actually a pretty good frame. And I do actually have Octavia built up. Now, in terms of weapons, well, I got a little bit lucky. I got Cerberus, and I have Cerberus Incarnate, and it's also built up as well. I got Cycron, which I do have Tenant Cycron. Don't have it built up, actually. And then Falcor, which is actually pretty good influence stuff. So I actually got pretty lucky this week. But other players are not going to be that way, especially lower level players. I'm almost LR6. I have pretty much everything in the game. In fact, I almost do. I just need a few more Arcwing weapons and some of the Red Veil weapons. But a lower level player is not going to have so many frames built up. Now, even though there is a lot of randomness, of course, to the random loadouts that you get, there is actually a guarantee with it, and that is that you are guaranteed to get at least something you own in each category. For example, for the melees, you cannot have 3 melees that are unowned. For the frames, you cannot have 3 frames that you do not own. So there could be somewhat a silly strategy where you only keep frames and weapons that are good, that you actually have built up, but who's going to do that really? Like, if you want to, you could only own Latum. Why is someone going to do that? The end game of Warframe is basically just collecting everything. And so now for a newer player, or just lower level player, the frame options they get right here might be frames that they do not have built at all. Taters are really important in this game, the Orokin Catalysts and Reactors, and they're pretty valuable. They're kind of rare. In fact, they are rare, I would say. So if someone else has this loadout, they might have, say, Equinox or Octavia, but they might not have either of them built up, and using a unmodded frame or a frame with only 44 capacity is not fun. So what people opt to do instead is select all the weapons they have, even if they are not built up. If they get one that's actually built up, then that's good. That's RNG in their favor. That's like a bonus more than anything though. They select all the modifiers and the 3 weapons they want, and then just choose whatever other frame that they actually have fully modded out. And Hildryn's a good point for that because she bypasses a lot of the modifiers, and also if you have 3 weapons that suck, well, Hildryn has an exalted, so you don't gotta worry about that. And same thing can be applied to, say, Mesa, Cyto 9, Akora, you name it really. But the difference between Hildryn and the other exalted frames is that the modifiers do not affect Hildryn as much as other frames. Now there are 2 or 3 modifiers that I think are really annoying for this game. Most of them are fine, like ability overload is a little bit annoying, but you can manage fine with it. Dual blades, like I mentioned, is fine. But then this week, well, we got constricted. This is definitely one of the more annoying modifiers. Max energy reduced by 75%. For some frames that hurts more than others, but for Hildryn that does not matter at all because you use shields, not energy. The second modifier that I would say is pretty annoying is the duration cut in half. That's also just not fun to mess around with. And you can kind of mod around these, of course. For example, I like to use Wisp in a lot of my Elite Archimedea run, and this is the Wisp mod loadout that I typically use. But if that constricted is there, then I'll probably throw on Prime Flow instead of something, I guess Umbral Fiber, because it would not actually fit in adaptation. And then if the duration is cut in half, maybe I'll replace Molt Augmented or Arcane Bellicose with Arcane Concentration. Had to look at the name for a second, but it's not like I enjoy doing that. But at least it's more bypassable, especially for me, because I have a lot of the things. For the average player, they're not going to have that luxury. And funny enough, I used to actually really focus on going for one of the frames up here. I used to try to just get always to the 37, but eventually I kind of just stopped picking the frame options up here because oftentimes I would not have any of these frames actually built up, or it's just a weaker frame that I do not feel like using, which is why I use Wisp so many times, because at least in that case, then I can simply buff my teammates at least. And I do enjoy playing Wisp quite a bit. And Wisp does have the Cataclysmic Gate build you can use too. She's also a pretty good Elite Archimedea option, I think. But there have been so many times where I would run a frame with only 44 total capacity, and that's just not fun. It's doable for sure. I normally play with my friend every week for Elite Archimedea and the other weekly stuff, and she would typically always follow the parameters, but I would always just disregard the frame, and it seems like a lot of people do that too. Now, why do I enjoy Elite Archimedea though? Well, it's simply the level of enemies, 475 to 500. I like that level range. Steel Path is just not very challenging now, to be honest, and then of course base star chart is not challenging at all. So some higher level enemies is nice to actually go up against. It's a better test, and it's not like level cap, of course. Level cap is very specific and a lot more limiting. For level cap, you need to actually have frames that are basically immortal. There is not much tanking you can do. You cannot really do armor tanking or just have high damage reduction. There is persistence now at least, so that helps some, of course, but not every frame can use persistence well. But level 475 to 500, that's a bit more manageable. You can use many frames from that. You can use any sort of tanking, DR, etc. So I like that. And then also I do like the mission structure of just having 3 missions in a row. And of course the rewards are kind of nice. You get the arcanes, you got a chance for an Omniforma, an Elemental Vice, the shards of course, and then Pix chips are good for Phosphor, and Phosphor really helps out for some of the arcanes that are really annoying to get. Like, good luck farming for any Eidolon arcane, trying to go for like 1 out of 500 arcanes it feels like in there. Now, what would happen if Hildryn got nerfed? Well, people will just move to the next best thing. And what's the next best thing? Probably Dante. Dante has plenty of survivability. He, of course, provides the team with plenty of survivability as well. I didn't know if I wanted to say survivability or support. He's got an Exalted as well. It's not as strong as Hildryn's Exalted, of course, but it still is an Exalted. And he just has great abilities overall. The duration or energy modifiers might impact him a bit, but you can probably work around it. But basically, nerfing Hildryn for this mode just does not really do anything, and it really just hurts people that use Hildryn outside of this mode. Because, like, what's the problem with running Hildryn in Descendia, for example, or Parida Rebellion, or just any sort of Steel Path mission? So really, all in all, I think Elite Archimedea should just be changed in terms of the modifiers, and maybe something could be done about the parameters. Maybe having more options would help out, because really the 3 options in each category does hurt a fair bit, especially newer players. again, that just do not have as many frames or weapons, or all the frames they do have are not built up at all. I enjoy this mode. I don't want to see it removed, which I don't think it would be removed anyway, but it could definitely use some improvements. Again, even if Elite Archimedea is for the 10% of players, that doesn't mean that the 10% of players don't also want it to be changed or don't think that it can be improved, because I definitely think that it could be improved. Let's just clean up some of these modifiers, maybe introduce more options for the loadout parameters, maybe have the parameters be buffed. Like, let's say, for example, any of these 3 melee weapons, if I want to use Falcor, let's say it's a buffed Falcor because it's the parameter for this mission. Like, maybe the frames up here get an additional 200% strength or duration, or maybe an additional 100% to every stat. Maybe the weapons in here do double or triple damage. So that would maybe help, instead of making it feel like you have to use these weapons, that instead these weapons and frames are incentivized to use. I'm not the most creative person, and it's not exactly my job, of course, to provide solutions for this. Digital Extremes is way more creative than I am. Pablo, he's a smart guy, I'm very sure of that. He can definitely think of solutions to the pain points for this mode while still keeping it challenging. But anyway, I think that's all I got to yap about for now, so just wanted to provide my thoughts on this as well, because it's been a pretty big talking point here recently, and I enjoy Elite Archimedea. I don't want to see it removed, which again, I don't think that would happen, and I don't want to see it become pointless or garbage, useless.